Throughout the class, you're going to need to do project plans for your major projects. The sample one I'm going to do is from the resume or portfolio project that you'll do about halfway through the class. But the basic principles of what I'm doing will apply to any project that you're doing. I'm using JUSTINMIND, which is a completely free software. I will link to it for you, and this is a great tool for creating wireframes. You may want to know what a wireframe is. A wireframe is a way of planning a website, and you'll need to do this, especially when you're working with other people, because it makes it very clear what you're intending to do and how you're intending to design the site. This allows you to get feedback when it's very easy to make changes. We're going to begin by doing a desktop version. In the future, we will do multiple devices based on a responsive design. So we're going to go ahead and start with this, just a simple desktop prototype or wireframe. Now there are many different components here that we can drag in, and that's going to make it very, very easy to create wireframes. There are some things here that are easy to bring in as we get further along into things like WordPress, but right now we're still hand coding everything, so things are going to be fairly simple. So this will be a website for the portfolio or resume project, and I'm going to just start here, and I will tell you that wireframes should not be in color. They're all typically black and white grayscale, and you need to think of them as plans for when you're building a house. If you have blueprints, which is what your wireframe really is for your web page, it's a blueprint. And if you're doing blueprints of your kitchen, you see where the cabinets are going to go, but you can't tell if they're oak or cherry. We don't care about the material at this point or the fonts so much, so you can select some basic fonts here. We care about placement in the content. So I will use real headings and links as far as names and titles. So my real heading up here would be my name and title. And then I would probably want to center this. Now I'm not going to get heavily into the fonts, but you can do some basic font changes here. So it has a lot of different options. If you're using Google Fonts, you'd have more than this, but this gives you a good choice to pick from. So we'll say that I'm going to make my headings in that font, and then paragraphs would typically be a sans serif. So this would be my front page, and I'm going to put all of the components on here that I will reuse on each page. The navigation would be included on each page, and that's typically going to be done as a button. So I can grab a button from here. I can go and specifically grab one from in here. It comes up multiple places, user icons, pictures, etc., image placeholders. We've got lots of options here. We have multiple components, and you should take a look around and see what you want to work with. So I'm going to use a light button 2. I've played with these a bit, but you can see them in the preview up here. Actually, I kind of like the dark button, so I'm going to put the dark button here. And then I'm going to zoom in, so I'm doing Control plus, it would be Command plus on a Mac, and I'm going to change the name. And then I can play with the styling a bit. I'd like it to be bolder. I'd like the font size to be slightly larger. And let's see if we can find something a little bit more, a little bit easier to read. Again, in buttons, I would use a sans serif. Don't use Comic Sans unless it's for a kid site. So a serif button or serif text has the little lines on it. Sans serif does not. And for readability, it's easier to use. That's a good one. Okay, it's easier to use a sans serif, and it's not really letting me make that change. Well, that's interesting. sure I've got it selected correctly here. You just need to make sure you select the text first. Then I can change. There we go. And I'm going to select the button again because I'd like it to be slightly more curved. So I like this to be at about 15. Yeah, okay, that's what I want my button to look like. And then to make it consistent, I'm going to duplicate it. You'd only need 3 pages, but I'm going to do 4 here. And then I can select all of them. And you can distribute these. That makes them evenly spaced. And I'm actually going to move them up a bit. Then I can do that distribute thing again. And I can align. There. Now, they should not all say the same thing. Your buttons should accurately depict what page they're going to. So I will do blog. That would be an option. I would do resume. And I would do portfolio. Then I would do the footer and what I'm going to include on the footer. So for every page for the footer, I want to do some basic icons in here. So if I had a Twitter, I don't like people following me on Facebook. I would lean towards LinkedIn, but I'm going to go ahead and put in a email icon. I'll put text next to that. And a telephone icon. You could choose to put in Twitter, Facebook, things like that. I'm going to add text here. And so I would put the phone number with the phone number. You don't have to actually put it in. We're just showing what it would look like. So this would be my footer. So this is the basic layout. I want to grab all of these. Not perfect, but that looks pretty good. Okay, so this is my basic template. I'm going to change this name here to home. And then I'm going to duplicate the page. And these will match my button names. All right, so I have all my blank pages here. Oh, that one I didn't do that the way I wanted to. Let me duplicate this one again. And that will be portfolio. And then I will put content on each of these. I'm not going to worry about doing this for all, well, I'll show you some. You will do your own sort of thing. So on my front page, and we make sure I'm on the home page up here, I would have a picture of myself. I would probably have a small title over it. I would have, and since this is H1 up at the top, I would take an H2 here, and I'd put in real text on this. And then I would add a paragraph underneath it. And there's my page 1. So for my blog, now I can go and look down at some of the different options that I have. So I've got blog items. And so this would be probably pretty close to what my blog would look like. And then I could look at my resume, and this one's going to be a little bit harder. They don't have that one pre-done. I'm going to go to the portfolio first because I'm here, and they have all sorts of portfolio layouts that you can look at. Now, remember, you're going to have to be able to program this, so keep it simple. And that footer, which is hidden behind here, would just float beneath it on the page. So this is, I would pick to have different things here. To actually get the arrows moving, you'd need to use a little bit of JavaScript. I do teach that in another class, and that's what I would really do for portfolio. You can get rid of those signals, and you can just make it longer. And when you click on these boxes, you can also make it open up into a larger page. And I talk to you about that if that's the route you decide to go. And then we could look at the, oops, I put that one on the wrong one. Let's go look at the portfolio. There we go. And then we got to make sure that we're on the resume. And this one, we can take a look at the contents here. And I'm just probably going to present my resume. We can take a look at a couple of them. Because you can do a traditional type resume, or you can take a look at some of this content here. So this would be a possible type of resume. You can do anything you want here, or you can do something custom if you want it to look more like a traditional resume. We go into the components, and let's see, we could do H2, work experience, and we could add information underneath that. Add another one, just to sort of show how I'm going to lay it out. And this page would likely get much longer. I put in a lot more detail on these than I'm indicating here with bulleted lists and things like that. But this gives you sort of an idea of the layout, which is really what we're trying to get for the wireframe. And we could even go further into this, which you may do in other classes. Okay, so that gives me a basic look, and you can actually make those interactive at some point. That is possible in here. We won't get to it at this level. When you do other classes, you might. So that gives me a really nice plan for what I'm going to do. Then you have to figure out how to hand it in. So the first thing I'm going to do is save it. and I'm going to put it in my Web 105 course. I'm going to do resume project plan. I'm going to save that. I'm going to export it. And the easiest way for this one, for handing it in, you can export it to image files. And we just want the screens, and we're going to hit OK. And they have showed up on my desktop. I've got multiple screens to move over. So they've showed up here, and I can go in and look at each one of them. You can hand them in this way, or you can hand them in by creating a folder. And I've created a folder. Again, I'm on a different screen here. I'll bring it over, resume plan. And then I can just drop these into it. And you can send those to a compressed folder and hand in the zip file, or you can hand in each one by doing the resubmit, so you have multiple things. So that's just sort of a breakdown on how you would hand in your, how you would create and hand in your wireframe. There will also be a couple other videos to show you how to select and hand in your Google fonts and your colors.